Hello, my name is Grin, and this is my beard. I got a very strange shaped crumb in my beard today. Maybe I'm waxing poetic, but I just kind of feel like I want to talk about some something different. Like today, I've been thinking a lot. I had a lot of difficult things to do today. I had to difficult, physically difficult. I had to change a door part today, and the door was in a very difficult place next to a refrigerator, and I had to move the refrigerator, and I had to do all this by myself, and it was a lot of work. But that, beyond that, I had to do it because someone I know had broken it, and they didn't, even after I had fixed it, I didn't get any kind of thank you for it until I had said something about it. And then I got some sort of a thank you, and it got me thinking, and how I teach, because I am a teacher, and the way I deal with people and their personalities. And I think one of the most important things to know is that things are not important. People are important. Things can be replaced, they can be destroyed, they can be rebuilt, but people are unique. Each person that you meet every day, regardless of the good or bad qualities that they have, they are unique. They are irreplaceable. Each and every one of those people that you meet are irreplaceable. So to me, the most important thing in this world is people. And I would say that about other things too, like animals and whatnot, depending on their, you know, level. Like, I gotta say that crows are very unique too and very intelligent. I would say probably the same for things like dolphins or whales and, I don't know, gorillas, although they have their own kind of language, the way they interact with people. And this comes from this thought process comes from how I used to take care of my horses when I had horses. When I was in Arizona, we had enough land that we were able to have three horses, two very large horses, almost like draft horses. They were so tall. Like, what was it, 18, 19 hands? I don't know if you know about how you judge a horse's size, but 19 hands is pretty dang tall. Uh, but at any rate, these horses they have their own way of communicating. Horses have a very interesting way of communicating, and it was kind of intuitive to me. I was able to figure it out pretty quickly. How they move their bodies, how they use their hooves or their mouth, and certain actions that they would do. And it made sense to me. So they were talking to me, and the horses and I got along really well, very well. I was the only person that could ride all of the horses and not have any problems with it. Just it wasn't like me riding them as they're a thing that I ride. It was like it's kind of like a partnership, and I wouldn't push them to go anywhere where I didn't think that they could go. And and I would listen to them too if they had worries. One of my horse's Bubbles, I remember I wanted to kind of go through this bush and up this hill a little bit, and he wasn't too sure about it. It was like maybe too rocky or something like that, and he stopped. He wouldn't go. I would give him a little nudge with my heels, and he wouldn't really move. It's like, okay, so I stopped, and I made him look at the area, made him look at the place where I wanted him to go, and then I pat him on the neck. We just sat there for a few minutes, and at some point in time, he sighed, and that's a horse's way of saying, okay, I'll try this, or let's do this type of thing. It's not resignation, because resignation is like it's not resignation. Okay, so when a horse wants to have a come to an agreement, like let's negotiate, then it'll start doing this with its mouth. But the sigh is more like a I'm prepared to try to do something. And in this case, it was to go up this little hill and through this bush. And so once he gave me that sigh, gave him a little nudge in the sides, and he went through, and he was a little bit nervous, and but he did get through, and he got up that hill, and wasn't a big deal. And I think after that time, it was after that happened, that horse was pretty much very trusting of me, knowing that I was capable of, you know, seeing what is there, and whether or not knowing that I could that I was able to recognize the abilities of this horse, and push it to do what it's capable of doing, and not more, not something that it couldn't do. Wouldn't put that horse in that position. And so he knew that, and we had a great relationship, that horse and I. And I could tell you stories about the other horses too. Uh, Bubbles was the 18 hands one, and then the other one was 19 hands. Her name was Strawberry, and she was ornery. A friend of ours had come to visit us once, and she had tried to ride Strawberry, and it didn't work out too well. Strawberry didn't really like this girl who was riding her, and kicked her off. She fell and hit pretty hard, and I feel pretty bad about that. But she was the one that wanted to try and ride this horse, even though I told her that she shouldn't. She should ride the smaller horse, Sunny, that we had, which was a very docile horse. But yeah, Strawberry was the most ornery one. So when shortly after the horse kicked her off, the horse came running over to me. I was riding Bubbles at the time. I turned Bubbles around, trot over to Strawberry, and Strawberry's just kind of like, I don't know what to do. She was a bit flustered, and I grabbed her reins and, you know, chilled her out. And then, riding Bubbles, I led Strawberry over to where our friend had fallen, and she had gotten herself back up and was limping towards us. I'm like, "Are you okay?" She was okay, but she was really scared of the horse. I'm like, "Well, this Strawberry is a strong horse. She's if you can't if this horse doesn't get if this horse doesn't trust you, it's going to be really hard to earn that trust. You've got to earn it." And I offered to let her ride Bubbles back, because I knew Bubbles. If I put her on Bubbles, I know Bubbles would follow us back, and I could ride Strawberry back. But she decided, no, I'm just gonna walk. I'm like, are you sure? She's limping, like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just gonna walk back. She walked back up to the house. It wasn't too far away. It's only maybe a football field and a half away from our house, our property, I should say. We were just on the road that goes to our house. But the point being is that not only people but animals are very. They have a personality. They have a way of doing things. And what I'm getting at is, I guess, the way people learn is pretty important. And there's many kinds of learning, but there's a specific way that people learn. There's For instance, I'm trying to learn how to play the drums. I mean, I can play the drums. I'm not very good. I want to get better, and so I have my lessons with my instructor, and I'm doing what the instructor says. And sometimes I can do it, and sometimes I can't. And it's not like I don't know what I need to do in my head. I know what I need to do. I know what the pattern is. It's just that my arms and hands aren't paying attention. They're not, or they're not. I don't know. It's automatic. It's so psychosomatic. My brain is telling my hands what to do, but my hands just automatically do something else. And that's probably just I have programs of learning where I would move my hands in a certain way, and to unlearn that or create a new program of moving my hands that's stronger than the old one. So that's it. That's it. We are computers, right? Human beings are like we're computers. We have memories, and those memories predicate what how we react to things, or how we act to things. You might have a genetic disposition to have a certain kind of attitude, but the memories that you've made are what causes your attitude, the way you portray yourself, or the thoughts that you have, or the actions that you do. In this case, I mean, being it would be like people. My son is afraid of the dark, yeah, and probably because one time when it was dark, he heard something that scared him when he was like a baby or something like that, and because of that, now he everything in the dark is a monster or something coming to get him, even though whatever scared him obviously didn't hurt him, but it left a mark in his brain, his memory. And even though he probably doesn't remember that time that caused him to be afraid of the dark, what he does remember is the feeling that he has in the dark. And that the memory doesn't go away, but it's still there. And even though you can't recall it, you can't bring it up, it still affects what you do. So everything, anytime anybody has uh, a reaction to something, like you hear a loud noise and you get all freaked out, it's because something like that caused a traumatic episode in you, or you had a traumatic event that was similar to that, and it scarred you. You've got that memory, and it's a bad memory. Even though you might not remember what happened, it's still going to, you know, affect you. It's still going to make you act certain ways. And that's one of the reasons why I like doing these videos. I like talking about it. I've learned that I have lots of these things that causes me to do what I do without thinking about it. Like I don't think about it, and then I realize, oh, I'm doing something weird, or I'm doing something that's not, what you wouldn't expect. And the reason for that is because of some sort of memory or processing, or some event that happened in my life that causes me to do what I do. And if I talk out, I learned that if I talk out all these things and get them out and come to terms with those issues that I've had, those problems that I've had, or those traumatic events, then I can get past them, and I can control them instead of having them control me. So the next time this event happens and I would normally have that response, I can cognitively understand this is the response that I would normally give, and it's because of something, and therefore I don't have to have that response. I can calmly take care of the situation without having a psychosomatic episode. Psychosomatic just means, like where you create it with your own mind. You create something that isn't there with your own mind. Like if you have a psychosomatic pain in your back, it's because you're thinking about it, that it's there. You create it for yourself. It doesn't mean that the pain isn't real. It just means that you in your own head are creating it. Did that to my son today. He had been having a cough for a while, and just out of the blue, I decided to try this. I said to him, "I'm really glad that you're feeling better and you haven't coughed for this all day today. You haven't coughed even once." And as soon as I said that, he coughed. And then he coughed a few more times after that. And then I stopped talking about it and he stopped coughing. And he hasn't coughed since. So that's psychosomatic. Um, Now, in learning also, so you've got, for me, learning the drums, I know that I know what I got to do, but it's just hard to create those programs so that I can do it consistently. And then that's me understanding and knowing what is needed to be done. But then for children and whatnot, they don't have that. They don't have an understanding of what needs to be done or why it needs to be done. So you've got this time where you can teach someone by uh, telling them what they need to know so that they can, do it. But there are times where you can't do that. You can tell somebody what they need to know to do the thing that they need to do, but they still just cannot figure it out. It just doesn't process for them. In those cases, you need to like forcefully get them to do it. You need to force them into doing the thing so that they can learn to do the thing. And that's another important thing. That's another reason why I'm doing these videos. I'm forcing myself to do this. I'm forcing myself to get in front of a camera and talk about these things that maybe nobody even cares about, but it's not for other people out there. It's for me. It's for me. This is to teach myself things. Maybe through the like I said, the Feynman technique. The more you teach a subject, the more you understand the subject. You can learn something by teaching it. You want to know how to do this math problem? Teach it to somebody else, and you will learn it in the process of teaching it. Basically, that's kind of how that works. But in the end, this process is very interesting because it's not like a computer in a way. Because when I have a program on my computer and there's an update, the update erases the old part of the program that used to do its thing and just completely replaces it with a new function that does something completely different. But as human beings, we can't do that. We can't erase those old thought processes. We can't get rid of the old past trauma that we've had. You can't do that. You can't erase it. You can't forget it. Even if you can't recall it or remember it, it's still there. It'll always be there. Every experience in your life is inside of your head. And just because you can't recall it and watch it in your own head or think about it or remember what happened or what day it was or whatever, doesn't mean that that memory isn't there. It's still there and it will affect you. And the only way to change that effect that it has on you is to either, no, there's only one way, really. And that is to create a new program that's stronger than the old program. So for instance, if I have a nervous thing where when people look at me, I cover my mouth or cover my nose and face, and I knew someone like that. My first Japanese girlfriend, anytime somebody would look at her, she would get all shy like this. Just say you have an idiosyncrasy like that and you want to get rid of it. You basically have to force yourself to do something different each time and keep doing it that way until that becomes easier to do than what you were doing before. So if I force myself to put my hand here, then at some point, because I'm always doing that, it will become stronger than the need or automatic response of going like this. And that's how anything works. And that's a big reason why Japanese people have a hard time learning English. When they were growing up, they've been basically learning that language sounds like a, I, u, e, o, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, sa, shi, su, se, so. They haven't had this experience of hearing language that includes things like sh, v, t. These are sounds that exist, but they're not language. So it's not really easy for them to process that and recreate it because they've learned that language doesn't include those sounds. When their mom and dad would go make baby sounds to them and talk to them, they could tell the difference between a baby sound like a and are you so cute? You're so cute. You know, you can tell the difference as a baby when you're growing up. This sound that this parent is making to me is nonsense, and this other sound is language. It's like statistics. And you kind of, once you've learned it, you can't forget it. So unless a child has been born into a situation where they could hear both languages, then they're going to have a hard time making the pronunciation of those languages. And I've proven this with my two kids, my daughter and my son. Now, my daughter, I was always talking to her a lot, when she was a little baby and everything. Always talking to her in English. And mom would talk to her in Japanese mostly, but also use English sometimes. Her pronunciation is native. Her English is perfect. My son, didn't talk to him so much in English. I would often use Japanese. I would use much more Japanese than I would English. And mom would always mostly use Japanese. But I still talk to him in English now. What I did is when he was a baby from 0 to 3 years old, I didn't talk to him so much in in English. I would talk to him in Japanese. And then after 3 years old, I started talking to him in English. And his pronunciation isn't as good as his sister. And he has a harder time hearing those sounds. Doesn't mean he can't, and he is getting better. But there is a difference. There is a difference. You need that. So let's say you have a kid, let's say you have a child, and you want them to be able to speak more than one language. Best thing you can do is give them some sort of experience with people who speak that language as much as possible. The more experience that child from 0 to 3 years old has with people who speak other languages, the more likely they are to be able to speak those other languages clearly. Clearly, like make the actual sounds that they make. So that's just what was in my beard today. Lots of things to talk about. What is this? Metaphysics? What is this? Anthropology? No. What is this? Um, Psychology? No. What is it? Is it? Is it? Hmm. Just things on my mind, and specifically about learning. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. Interesting stuff to me. And if I come up with any other ideas on this particular subject, or if it pops into my head at some point in time, I'll talk about that in a further video. But that's it for today. Thank you for giving me a chance to get these thoughts out of my brain and into words. Good night.